Hi YouTube, Big Apple here. It's been a while since I've made a video, so today I thought I would address gun-free zones. So schools, areas, government buildings, any private business that wishes to do, to have the area be quote-unquote gun-free. So what is the intention of a gun-free zone? Well, it's to create to create a safe environment, to create an area where people feel safe. It creates a feeling of safety, but it's just an illusion. It's a fantasy. It's a lie. It creates a feeling of safety. And as anyone knows, feeling safe does not equal being safe. They're completely different things. So what's the origin of gun-free zones? Well, it was originally designed in schools around the drug-free zone premise. This was in like the 90s, the Gun-Free Zone Act of 1990-95. They're also mandated in government-owned areas. So I have that listed here too, although the main thing I'm going to be focused on in this video is school campuses. Since that happened in 1990 on school campuses. Before that, there were gun-free zones, but they weren't in these school zones. So what do gun-free zones create? Well, they create a target-rich environment. They make people defenseless, they enable crime, and it creates the illusion of safety. So when you see this sign at the entrance of a campus or in the front of a government building or whatnot, unless that sign has a metal detector or has a pair of arms and hands to disarm and pat down everybody, or unless there's personal security personnel present there, this is not a true gun-free zone. It is just the perception of a gun-free zone, or it guarantees that most of the law-abiding individuals there are disarmed. So the people that you want to be disarmed are not, because criminals still don't care about laws. It's a crazy concept. Criminals don't follow laws. So it creates a target-rich environment. It makes people defenseless, and it enables crime. So think about it. If you were in a gang on the edge of a campus, why would you try to rob the drug dealer a few doors down from you, who may kill you or have you killed by his rival gang, when you can go to campus where law-abiding citizens are straight up disarmed and ripe for the picking, where you can drive into a parking lot, find one person by themselves, rob them, and get back to whatever it is you're doing? Seems like a no-brainer, right? If you want it to be easy, you'd go to one of these areas. So there are other means of safety on campus, although they're more preventative. There's emergency text services. It's not a preventative measure, but it's helpful. It helps if there's a crime in a certain area so that you can avoid it. It's helpful if there are road closures. It's helpful if there's inclement weather. It's good for letting people know, letting students and faculty know about things that can be predicted, like weather, road conditions, road closures, construction, certain events, etc. But there's no way for them to predict crime. You can't predict crime, just on a case-by-case basis. It's really difficult to pinpoint that. There's law enforcement. Again, it's not a preventative measure. The average response time, this is from a Washington Times article from a few years back that I did a speech on in a class, is 8 minutes and 25 seconds. And whether or not that number has decreased in the past few years, I doubt it's decreased into 15 seconds, 30 seconds, which is the amount of time that these things usually happen, unless it's like a home invasion scenario where it would be a lot longer. If it's just somebody robbing somebody else, they're going to want to get in there, get whatever they can, and then get out of there as fast as they can. So obviously 8 minutes is only for them to report it, not to prevent it. It's not nearly enough time. It's not soon enough to end carnage, especially in a mass shooting scenario. So in a personal crime, they report and not prevent. So if you're robbed, call the police, they file a report, and that's the end of it. And they usually don't have enough information for them to actually do an extensive investigation to see what exactly happened. For mass shootings, it's not enough time to end the carnage. So these are kind of conflicting here, but just go with it. So it's not soon enough to end the carnage, because a killer's mindset, as I have here, is a high body count in a short amount of time. You want to get as many kills as you can in a short amount of time, because most of them see it probably like a video game. Since that most of them are real lonely anyway, or as you've seen in the past, most of them are pretty nutty. That's what they want to do. They want to kill as many in a short amount of time, and they usually crumble at the slightest sign of resistance. And if you look in the past, there are a few cases where there's been a shooting in a school, and a principal or a student or something like that were able to retrieve a firearm from their car and hold the person at bay. And this person they don't want a shootout. The mass killers don't want a shootout. They just want to cause carnage and fear, and they're demented people. They don't want a shootout. They don't want it to be a war zone. They want it to be, hey, I'm going to go in and kill all these people because I know they're disarmed. So, for example, in recent things, Virginia Tech, obviously, Aurora Theater, also gun-free zone by by state law in that state. Of course, the one Columbine in Colorado, of course, gun-free zone. And then, obviously, the most recent one at Sandy Hook, another gun-free zone in a very heavily Democratic area, Connecticut. So they kill as many as they can, short amount of time, things get really bad. So, of course, you'll have the naysayers, oh, it'll be like the Wild West. Well, Utah hasn't had a gun-free zone for about a decade, and that doesn't only include college campuses, that includes K through 12 schools as well. And obviously, you haven't heard about any mass shootings in Utah. And even if the criminals know this or don't know this, if something were to occur there, it would be much better for it to occur there where it can be stopped than somewhere where it can't, like Sandy Hook. And I know it sounds really bad, but you do want to minimize the carnage. It would be better for it to happen in an area where someone can fight back. So, yeah, so let's see, they allow it. And what would that be for? Sorry, I skipped around here. I see allowing concealed carry and gun-free zones as a mass shooting deterrent, but not a solution. So, it would deter criminals from going in there if there weren't gun-free zone signs, but not necessarily a solution because they will probably still happen anyway, but they might start declining if more of these mass shootings are stopped. But then again, a mass shooting isn't considered a mass shooting until more than 4 people have died. So, if you prevent it at the beginning, how would you be able to tell if it would have become one? So, of course, that's an argument from the left. Oh, it wasn't a mass shooting, only 2 people died. Well, it probably didn't get to the point for 20 people to die because someone stopped it. Allowing concealed carry gun-free zones would mainly aid in personal safety. So a cop's not going to follow you around all the time. Say you have a night class and there's no other way to take it during the day, just a night class. Walking back to your car in a dark parking lot or in broad daylight by yourself, like I said, someone could drive up, rob you, and get the hell out of there. If you have a means to defend yourself, that would greatly aid in your personal safety. All mass shootings in gun-free zones since 1950, except one, that Gabby Giffords one in Arizona, didn't happen in a gun-free zone. And criminals like soft targets. I think the one in Arizona with Gabby Giffords, obviously there was some sort of vendetta out about her. He probably wanted to just target her. Whereas, in the gun-free zones, criminals like the soft targets because they know that people in there are going to be disarmed, and they're not necessarily out to kill 1 person, they just want to kill as many as they can. So we'll go back to this. Sorry if I skipped it a little bit. It'd be like the Wild West. Yeah, Utah's had 0. Crime has been declining since '92, and gun ownership is surging. I don't know if that surprises some of you. Those guys that keep up with the shooting community probably know this already. But especially with Biden and Obama talking about banning certain kinds of guns, although they say, oh, we don't want to take your guns, but that's really what they want to do. Gun ownership has been surging in the past few years, but crime still continues to decline. So although and it's been declining since '92, and '92 was when concealed carry was enacted in Florida. So although this doesn't prove more guns equals less crime, it definitely disproves that more guns equals more crime. So, the culture changes over time, different things happen there or whatever. So it's hard to say there's a direct correlation of, more guns equals less crime. Although, there are certain areas that would prove that, or at least, be there to back it up. It definitely disproves that more guns equals more crime because there is a record number of legal gun ownership in America now. Since Obama took office, there has been I forget the exact number, maybe I'll annotate it, about 60 million background checks since February 2008. And that only includes single background checks. So that could have been one person going to a sporting goods store and buying multiple firearms on one background check. That doesn't mean that it's just one background check per firearm. So that number could be a lot more. So campuses are no different than other areas. They always say, oh, it's tense learning environment, blah, blah, blah. Well, concealed carry guys aren't impulsive. If they're going to go and get permitted, they're going to turn in their fingerprints to the police departments in the state, at least in Louisiana where I live, you have to do that. If they're going to go through all this work, why would they do that to immediately be impulsive and be imprisoned? It makes no sense. It's emotional. It's not a rational argument. That's never happened. I haven't heard of any concealed carry person just snapping one day and just go and kill people. It's a very incremental thing for someone to just lose their mind and start killing people. It happens progressively over time. And, all the mass killers you've seen in the past have been very lonely. They had troubled past. They had a rough childhood, bad home. It's a very long process. It's not often that you hear a sane person just one day snaps, because that's not how it works. So campuses are no different than other areas. And if you were to abolish gun-free zones, it would only change where a person can carry, not who. So they always say, well, why would you want 18-year-olds running around in dorms with alcohol and drugs, with guns, blah, blah, blah. They're 18. They can't carry. You have to be 21. That doesn't change. And it also doesn't change that, and at least in my state in Louisiana, your blood alcohol level has to be 0.05, which is less than it is to drive. So you can operate a 2-ton metal piece of machinery capable of killing a lot of people, and to be used as a weapon a lot greater than something that only slings out a tiny half-ounce, quarter-ounce, eighth of an ounce piece of metal one at a time. It seems a little backwards to me, but you still should have a clear mind when you operate either one of those. So you still shouldn't carry and let your blood alcohol level get over 0.05, at least in this state. Responsible individuals. CCers are the most law-abiding citizens in the country, and if you look at statistics, they are insanely low compared to the rest of the population. It's a personal burden to carry. So a person that carries every day, it's a burden to them. They have to carry the piece of metal. They have to be slightly uncomfortable compared to other people. And they also have to worry about the law if they were to have to use it. It's a personal burden on them, but it does promote personal responsibility because you have to hold yourself in check. You could easily have your concealed carry permit taken away for something as simple as a DWI or a peeing in public or something like that. Anything little like that, you're held to a higher standard than regular people, and a lot of the population doesn't know that. So putting up arbitrary lines does nothing to stop the criminal element. It really encourages it. Like I said, that's why you see all these things happen in gun-free zones, but of course the media doesn't talk about that a lot. They don't say all these areas have been gun-free zones. They immediately go to, let's push more gun control. Well, why has there been very little crime in the South? Or at least mass shootings. Why has there been very few mass shootings in the South? I shouldn't say crimes, but because of course in dense urban areas, there's stuff like that's going to happen. Like, in New Orleans, just this past Mother's Day, there was some gang crime during a parade, which I just think is, I don't know, I can't even talk about that. It's so despicable. Can't believe human beings would do that. But like I said, it's an incremental thing. They've grown up in these gangs their whole lives. They've been taught violence from a young age, and it just perpetuates the cycle. There's no way to stop it. So until these areas can guarantee personal safety, they cannot criminalize. Can't see it there. They cannot criminalize self-defense. So unless these schools have metal detectors and security guards everywhere checking everyone, there's no way for them to assure me that I'm going to be safe. They can only make me feel safe, but feeling safe isn't being safe, like I said earlier. So if you agree or disagree on gun-free zones, let me know in the comments. And that's all I have to say. Y'all have a good one.